Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my name is Jan Hennig from the University of Groningen, where I'm an assistant professor of corporate governance. And in my research, I also focus on the determinants and outcomes of employee ownership. And today I want to present to you a non-financial perspective on employee ownership. When I talk about employee ownership, I mostly refer to rank and file employees, so rather these broad-based plans, not so much senior management or even executives. So I will go for employee stock ownership plans in general. I know there are a lot of synonyms for the programs and plans, but yeah, I usually use ESOP, so you know what I'm talking about. And we know for ESOPs there are a lot of benefits for employees. We know that from anecdotal evidence from practice, but we also know that from some qualitative insights from case studies or surveys. And these benefits stem from higher identification from employees, leading to a stronger bonding with the employees, resulting in stronger retention, so employees not leaving the firm. But we also have other benefits such as less absenteeism, high motivation, also leading to a more well-being of the employee, resulting in more satisfaction, and last but not least, a higher productivity. Of course, if you look at these benefits of the ESOPs for the employees, there are also direct benefits for the firms. I think, well, if you look especially at retention or productivity, it is pretty clear that these are substantial benefits for the firms. And well, there are all these qualitative insights out there. And of course, I also want to talk a little bit about my research. And what we did in our research is we wanted to kind of substantiate these claims that they were out there. And we wanted to look particularly at retention as one specific topic. Luckily, we had a research cooperation with Siemens, who shared important information on the individual rank and file employees and their behavior in the participation of the employee share ownership programs. We also had information on the retention, though on employees leaving or staying with the firm. And luckily, as you all know, Siemens is a very large company operating worldwide. So we had several 100,000 individuals over multiple years in very different departments, very different industries, coming from different countries, different cultures. So all in all, a very heterogeneous group with a large degree of diversity. And don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with the results of the regression output here. I just wanted to show you the number of the 600, but almost even more than 650,000 observations that we had, to give you an idea that we were very confident about the ideas that we found. And on the next slide, I'm going to summarize the results so that you don't have to bother with the output of the regression. First of all, we found confirming evidence for the positive relation here. So what we found in particular is that if individual employees participate in the ESOP, they are more likely to remain with the firm and not leave the firm. So I think that definitely proves a very big substantial benefit of ESOPs. Second, we were interested in investigating how ESOPs help to retain employees that might be more likely to leave the firm. Because if you think about employees who will stay with the firm anyways, there's not much sense in providing incentives to these employees in order to keep them at the firm, because they will stay anyways. So we tried to look at employees who are more likely to leave the firm. And first, we looked at employees with a lot of outside opportunities in the form of a beneficial labor market, in the form of a low unemployment rate, because that usually offers a lot of employment opportunities, a lot of outside opportunities to the employees. And what we found is that for these employees in more favorable labor markets, the retention effect stemming from the participation in the ESOP, that was even stronger. So a substantial second benefit of ESOPs in terms of retention here. Second, we looked at a cultural aspect, in particular at cultural uncertainty avoidance, because uncertainty avoidance is also linked to risk-taking. And if you change jobs, that usually involves some risk, because you have to find a new employer. There's a new trial period at the new employer. So usually people who score high in uncertainty avoidance, they are less likely to change jobs. On the other side, people who are low in uncertainty avoidance, they are more likely to change jobs. So these are the ones that we need to definitely provide some incentives in order to keep them, if you want to keep them. And what we found here is that for the people in lower uncertainty avoidance, again, the retention effect stemming from the ESOP was even stronger. So all in all, I think we can summarize the really substantial benefits in participation of ESOP for the rank and file employees by retaining them with the firm, and especially in contexts where you need to fight for talent, fight for the employees in these contexts where they are more likely to leave the firm. Their ESOPs work particularly well. Next, we wanted to dive a little bit more into the details, into the mechanism, what was going on. Actually, how were the ESOPs helping to keep the employees at the firm? And first of all, we found very interesting when we compared the results for rank and file employees to the effects on senior managers. We found that the retention effect stemming from ESOP is even stronger for rank and file employees than for senior managers. And you have to imagine that senior managers, of course, have a much higher salary. They can invest more money in absolute, but also in relative terms. And still the retention effect of ESOPs was higher for rank and file employees. So there was already an indication that maybe the height of the financial investment is not the most important thing that we should look at. Following this idea of the financial height of the investment, we looked within the rank and file employees and looked at blue collar and white collar employees. So blue collar employees usually working in things like production, and white collar more administration, management, so usually higher in the hierarchy. And again, we found strong retention effects for blue collars, even slightly stronger than for white collars. Last but not least, we looked at the rank and file employees and specifically looked at the height of the ESOP investment they made. And very interesting, we found that it doesn't matter if they invest 0.5% of their salary, 1% or 2%, or even higher salaries, higher investments. The retention effect is significant for all heights of investments. So as long as you at least invest 0.5% of your salary into the ESOP, there's a very high likelihood, a higher likelihood, I should say, for the employee to remain with the firm. So again, an indication that it might not be about the height of the investment, but it's more about being invested and having the benefits that are unlocked from this investment that I showed you on the first slide. So if we now think about all the benefits that ESOPs have to offer on the individual, on the employee, but also on the firm level, the question is, why do ESOPs lack, so much popularity? I brought with me some numbers from the Global Equity Insight Survey. I think the colleagues from HKP will probably be able to tell you even more about that because they were part of creating that survey. So I'm just going to use their numbers. What they found is that within the participating firms, there was an average participation rate of 38% in Europe and 42% overall. So I think these numbers are relatively small, also comparable to what we heard from L'Oréal. So we have a problem on the employee level. Moreover, we also have a problem on the firm level, that not enough firms are offering ESOPs to the rank and file employees in the form of broad-based plans. So most firms have incentive plans for their senior managers or especially for the executives, but really these broad-based plans, they are not offered as often. And I think that forms part of a even bigger problem, because we can already see here that in Europe, the problem is particularly larger than in the rest of the world. And I only found this figure for Germany, but I checked, and in Austria, it actually looks very much the same. In Switzerland, it's a little bit better, but the general message here is that we have a very small number of shareholders in Germany, and as I said, also in Austria, a little bit better numbers in Switzerland. So overall, I think the picture here is in Europe, we are lagging behind in participation rates in ESOPs, but it forms part of a bigger picture in which, having shares is not very common, and it is particularly not very likely. And that is, it's really a shame, because if you think about the political discussions going on, making pension schemes more stock-based, then ESOPs could be a great tool to familiarize people with shares and contribute to having more people investing in shares. But, apparently with ESOPs also doesn't work very well, and the overall number of shareholders in our countries, in the German-speaking countries, are still very low. So what can we do about it? I think it's no surprise to the people in this virtual room, because exactly what we're doing here, I think, is the right way to go, to get together, to share insights about ESOPs, about the benefits of ESOPs, get talking about that, and then have the material in order to convince, for one, the government, which is now also already happening to some degree, as we heard in the last presentation, but I think there can be done much more. Second pillar is, of course, convincing the firms to implement ESOP programs, also broad-based ESOP programs, and last but not least, the employees. Convince the employees of participating in ESOPs, of course, in case the firm offers such an ESOP, and through that we can achieve higher employee ownership rates. Well, given my background of corporate governance, I'm particularly going to focus on the link between firms and employees. So how can firms convince the employees to participate in these ESOP schemes? And that's what I want to focus on in the next couple of slides. So, well, what comes to mind, I think it's pretty obvious choice. First of all, ESOP should be financially attractive, and most firms do it in one of two ways. The first way would be having a discount when the employees buy shares. We see that the average is about 17% worldwide. In Europe, it's even a little bit bigger. And looking at the distribution, it's quite equal within the different quartiles and in the median. Second approach would be a matching ratio of share matching plans, which was also the case with L'Oreal, and which is also the case with, for example, Siemens. We see that, well, on average, one investment share would result in one matching share, but it's also quite common to have two investment shares or even three investment shares and one matching share there. And I think if we look at these numbers, it is quite obvious that the financial benefits are really substantial. So again, we have these financial benefits, but, well, we still saw from the previous slides that employees forego these benefits. So what might be going on there? And here, well, my perspective comes into play by looking at the non-financial, the more behavioral reasons behind employees foregoing these benefits. And here I want to draw a little bit on a more behavioral economic perspective. So not really the non-financial, so the non-financial behavioral personal preference, you could also call it, role. And one big part here is obviously culture. And I think culture is also a nice unifying framework, because today we're talking about German-speaking countries. And of course, they are kind of linked by, well, at least to some degrees, a similar culture. And one thing in culture that stands out is uncertainty avoidance, as I already told you earlier. Uncertainty avoidance is related to risk-taking. So higher uncertainty avoidance means less risk-taking. And we know if people are, well, less likely to take risks, they will also be less likely to invest in shares, because investing in shares is a risky matter. There was one researcher by the name of Gert Hofstede, who is at least very popular in research in the academic world, because he managed to capture these different cultural dimensions, among them uncertainty avoidance. I only brought a subset of the data with me, but what you can see here is that Austria, Germany, and to some degree also Switzerland, they are ranking quite high in uncertainty avoidance. So they have high levels of uncertainty avoidance. And then typically you have these countries such as United Kingdom and United States, where you see a low level of uncertainty avoidance, meaning a higher tendency to take risks. And this also nicely exemplifies that, well, in Germany, Austria, it is less likely that people invest in shares. In the United Kingdom, United States, it's much more common to invest in shares. So I think we can kind of see we have these behavioral tendencies in terms of culture on the one hand side, and we have the stock investing behavior of employees on the other side. And for me, there's a clear link, which has also been shown in previous research, how uncertainty avoidance hinders people from investing shares. And of course, the problem here is stocks are not that popular. So the question for us now is, like, how can we overcome these non-financial, these behavioral challenges? And based on my research, I want to provide some suggestions here how we can overcome these. So first of all, knowledge and familiarity. What we found in our research, and I'm happy to say we, because actually Rike Hullmann, who will present later, was also part of this research team while she did her PhD with me a couple of years ago in Göttingen. And what we found in one of our projects is that employees who are more familiar with the program, they are more likely to participate in ESOPs. And these employees are typically such as having higher tenure, so having worked with the firm for a longer time, being more exposed to the firm and having more knowledge about the ESOP also. Employees working in the HR department who typically organize or even orchestrate the whole ESOP scheme. So again, having higher familiarity. also being closer to the headquarters. Second point is employees with greater financial literacy also more likely to invest in ESOP and therefore to unlock all the benefits that I told you about. Financial literacy can come from higher education, can also happen from finance departments. These are actually findings that we found. So really like people work in the finance department or having higher educations, also in regions where it is more likely that people invest in shares, such as the United States of America. There we have a high likelihood of people investing in the ESOP. So what can firms take away from it? I think it's pretty clear that firms should provide information on the ESOPs to the employees, but I think they should go even a little bit further. So try to make the information as clear as possible. I think what is always a nice way to show the employees is also get them some calculations about what would have happened if they had invested before in the last years, and show them the benefits, the financial benefits. What would have been the rate of return, for example? How much money would have made from an investment of 100 or 1,000 euros? I think that really helps to illustrate what is happening here. And the second point, if you look at these broad-based plans, you are really talking to a lot of employees who have literally no idea of stock markets. I showed you the slide with shareholders in Germany, and we saw that less than 1/10 of the people actually invest in shares. So a lot of them do not know anything about the stock market. So I think some basic education about stock market can already help and be the first step in order to familiarize people with the stock market, and then follow up by more information on ESOPs. Second point, how we can overcome these non-financial challenges is change the culture. Of course, you cannot pull the people out of the German-speaking country culture, but what we can do is we can change the culture within organizations. And one thing that we found in our research is that actually cultures that have a stronger entrepreneurial focus, that these help people to invest in ESOPs, because usually employees see themselves as workers. They don't see themselves as shareholders, as owners of the firm. But if you manage to give them some more of an identification with the firm, if they can also chip in their own ideas, all these innovation, entrepreneurial approaches, if you get them to identify or develop this kind of feeling more, then they will feel more as small entrepreneurs within the firm and also as owners. And then the step towards participating in the ESOP is much smaller and works much better, and then also can unlock all the benefits that I was talking about. And we found also that this effect is stronger in more cohesive groups, because then things such as a peer effect come into play. Last point I want to talk about is set ESOP as a default. Of course, you cannot change the form of the salary into giving out shares every month. But for example, what Siemens did is they had a profit sharing payout. And what they decided is that they're not going to have this payout in forms of cash, but they decided to give out the payout in forms of shares. So suddenly all the employees in the firm worldwide were share owners. So they took already the first step in making the employees owners. And thereby what they were able to observe, or what we were able to observe then, was that in the following tranche of the ESOP participation decision, there were significantly more employees signing up for the ESOP participation. So I think that's also a nice way to get people on board and to nudge them towards participation in ESOP. And my final remark, well, you might already know this book. It's a small nudge. It's called also Nudged by two very famous behavioral economists by the names of Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein. And they refer to human beings not as so much as a Homo economicus, but much more as a Homo sapiens. Well, we're all using heuristics. We're all subject to biases. We're not making rational decisions all the time. And they provide a lot of examples where people are making, well, not optimal decisions, let's say, but how you or how politicians, how firms can kind of nudge employees into the right direction. And I think it's a great read, one of my favorite books. And well, with that, I want to thank you for your attention and look forward to your questions.
That's wonderful.